every single word on earth means something different for every human being. So when I say inner peace, what does it mean to you?
So I think inner peace is one of these cliches, frankly, that doesn't mean a lot to anybody because it gets thrown around a lot and it seems either hopelessly vague or hopelessly unattainable. We envision somebody who's perfectly imperturbable, wearing long flowing robes, and we think, justifiably, that could never be me. My thinking about inner peace is that it's not some perfect state, candy land. It's actually something you can incrementally improve. You can become more at peace in your internal world. There are lots of ways to do this. Most of them we know. Exercise, get enough sleep, eat a healthy diet, use moderation with alcohol, have good friends and good relationships with your family members and your loved ones. But the technique that I'm most excited about and that I sort of proselytize on behalf of is meditation. And before you stop listening, because a lot of people just hate the idea of meditation, let me just make my pitch. I used to think meditation was complete nonsense, only for hippies and freaks and weirdos and people who were really into aromatherapy and Cat Stevens. As it turns out, though, there's an enormous amount of scientific research that strongly suggests that meditation can lower your blood pressure, boost your immune system, and literally rewire key parts of your brain that have to do with compassion, self-awareness, and stress. So I have been doing it for a couple of years now, even though I was a dyed-in-the-wool skeptic, and I found that there are two big benefits. One is it boosts your ability to focus. We live in an era where we're just besieged and beset by texts and tweets and status updates and emails, and I found that the daily exercise of sitting and trying to focus on one thing at a time, usually your breath, because that's what you do in meditation, helps me stay on task when I need to. And I have a very high stress, high pressure job. So the ability to stay on task and to have increased focus is a big value add for my life. The second benefit is the big one, though, and it's this thing called mindfulness, which is kind of a boring sounding word, but it's a game-changing proposition. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head right now without taking the bait and acting on it. So it's the ability to see your internal processes without getting caught up in the story automatically. So for example, you're driving down the road, somebody cuts you off. Normally, how does that experience go for you? I think it goes, for most of us, it goes a little something like this. We have an uninvited thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then we automatically, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. We actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus, somebody cutting you off, and your blind reaction to it. Mindfulness is the ability to see that, my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But I don't need to bite the hook and chase the guy down the road with my kids or my friends in the back seat thinking I've lost my mind. This is a huge benefit for day-to-day life. And it's why meditation, or specifically mindfulness meditation, which by the way is secular and simple and scientifically validated. You don't have to join a group, you don't have to believe in anything. It's why mindfulness meditation is now being adopted in some really surprising places. Corporate executives, lawyers, athletes, Katy Perry and 50 Cent are both doing it. As I like to say, 50 Cent got shot 9 times, he deserves some peace of mind. Athletes are doing it, the U.S. Marines, the U.S. Army are doing it. Even this fidgety and skeptical newsman are now embracing meditation because it is a way to gradually increase your inner peace. It is not going to solve all of your problems automatically. It is not going to make your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. But if inner peace is your goal, this is a very practical way to get started, and I recommend it. 5 minutes a day is enough to get started. Google the instructions and get going.
Are there still challenges for you? I mean by that, you really managed to never react?
I've been meditating for about 6 years now, and I still firmly retain the capacity to be a complete jerk. I don't think that adopting a practice like meditation is going to make you a saint overnight. It may never make you a saint. What it will do is marginally, incrementally, fractionally, slowly over time increase your ability not to be a jerk. There's a reason why I wrote a whole book about this, and I called it 10% Happier. Because my idea is that so many of the solutions that are presented to us, particularly by self-help writers, are immediate, overnight, silver bullet solutions, like you're going to heal your life, you're going to use the power of positive thinking to get anything you want, whatever. I think these are deeply irresponsible things to offer to people. So I'm trying to offer an alternative, and by the way, it's nothing new. Meditation in the form that I practice it has been around for 2,600 years and was invented by a guy in India by the name of the Buddha. And is now taught in a very secular way known as mindfulness meditation, where again you don't have to become a Buddhist, you just practice these simple techniques that people have been doing for thousands of years, and it can lower your reactivity. If my wife were here, she would give you the 90% still a moron speech, because there are plenty of times when I say or do things that are deeply annoying. But I'm doing them less frequently, and as a consequence, I'm easier to live with and a lot happier.
Yeah, what's the consequence of more inner peace on your relationships with people around you, in your family, at work, everywhere?
If you can achieve a greater level of inner peace, it's going to affect everything in your life, most especially your relationships with the other people and animals with whom you interact. So I live with my wife, our baby son, and 3 cats, and my relationships with all of them have improved quite significantly. Although I have to say, I never had a bad relationship with the kid, and he only came along 8 months ago, way after I started meditating. But the benefit of meditation vis-a-vis having a baby is that I'm much more able to be there, right there, excited about feeding him and laughing with him, and instead of just checking my iPhone all the time. And that really does speak to one of the ways in which having a greater inner sense of composure and focus and mindfulness and compassion can boost your relationships, which is that I'm much better at listening to what people are saying, and people like that. People don't like, I mean, think about your own experience, you don't like when you're trying to talk to somebody and they're checking their email in the middle of it. It's very annoying. So again, I do not claim to have reached some state of perfection, but I do feel that over time I get better at being focused and present enough to listen to what people are saying. And by the way, the other thing about meditation is that it's been shown in the labs to boost your levels of empathy and compassion. So once you understand how crazy your own mind is, you really get a lot better at seeing that everybody else is just as crazy. And you then have a little bit more understanding for when you see people doing things that they're probably later going to regret.
One very important question is the false dichotomy between serenity and striving.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something you fought with for
Yes.
a while.
Yes.
And you change your mind.
Yes. A lot of people think if I achieve some degree of inner peace, I will be ineffective. I won't be able to compete in high stress environments like a school or a career like mine in broadcast news. And I worried about that. I grew up, my father bequeathed to me a motto, which is, the price of security is insecurity. So as you can tell, I grew up in a family where worrying was venerated. And so I for a long time believed that any success that I achieved was contingent upon constantly worrying, having this mental stream of, how good was my last story? How good is my next story going to be? What is my relationship with my bosses right now? Who's getting a story that I want? Et cetera, et cetera. And you know what? I still actually think that it's true that the price of security is insecurity, with a major caveat. The caveat is the price of security is insecurity until it's not useful anymore. We tend to make our worrying, we tend to make our suffering much more dramatic than it needs to be. Yes, it is true that to achieve anything in the world, it does involve a certain amount of stress and plotting and planning and worrying. However, we don't need to take it so far that we go down the rat hole of useless rumination and are unpleasant to be around and unhappy. And so what I found is that mindfulness meditation, which boosts your self-awareness, I notice more often when, oh, I'm worrying about problem X, Y, or Z well past the point of utility, and I can stop and think about something else. So it helps me draw the line between useless rumination and what I call constructive anguish. And this has made me more effective in my job because I'm not doing useless worrying that just tires my mind out. And it's made me easier to live with and also happier.
Because there's a mantra, especially in the business world, that only paranoid survive.
Yeah.
If you want to be the most successful CEO of the largest multinational, you've
Yeah.
got to be paranoid.
Yeah. It's pretty easy to disprove the notion that only paranoids survive. The fact that mindfulness meditation is sweeping through corporate America in such a dramatic way just disproves this notion. Why do we have the CEO of a company called Aetna meditating? Why do we have executives in Procter & Gamble, General Mills, Google, Twitter, Facebook? Why are they all engaging in meditation? Because it makes you more focused and less yanked around by your emotions. A certain amount of paranoia maybe could be useful, but if you're so paranoid that you're popping off and getting angry at people in moments where you don't need to be, or spending an enormous amount of time reducing your energy levels through useless fear and worry, you are not going to be better at your job than your competitor. If in fact you have some control over your mental processes, some awareness of what's happening in your mind so that you don't get carried away by it, if I would argue strenuously that you are going to be more effective. And by the way, it's not just corporate America, it's also the U.S. military, elite athletes, the Seattle Seahawks, have a meditation coach. Novak Djokovic, who recently won Wimbledon, is a pretty avid meditator. We're also seeing in the legal profession, in the medical profession, all throughout the world of science. So some of the most impressive and highly functioning Homo sapiens on the planet are engaging in mindfulness meditation, boosting their own inner peace, and it is not hurting them.